Welcome in to another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. Tonight we got a doozy, the final two games of the road trip, little home cooking coming up. We're going to get into some little advanced metrics with a new segment later on, so that's a little teaser there for you. Another installment of Coast to Coast, so get in the chat, like and subscribe. Let's go. As always, that intro was brought to you by Ezera, the new single Blind out now, anywhere you listen to music. Boys, we are back for week 2 of the hockey season. Any of the road trip, I'm sure we're excited to get a home game in. I'm sure the Kings are excited to get a home game in. I'm sure all of LA is excited to watch World Series Game 1, and including Joe here, the Yankees contributor. But let's start with you guys. How are you guys doing this evening?
Yeah, it's besides, I guess, hockey last night for the LA area, it's some excitement around the LA Dodgers coming up. I guess all of baseball should be excited. This is what we've been talking about this, right? This is what Major League Baseball has kind of been waiting for. The two best teams, the two highest paid teams. Why not? Like, these two are it seems like fate at this point. And I'm excited. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, you should be. It doesn't, and you should be if you're a neutral. It doesn't always happen this way, where the two best teams play, because a lot of times playoffs can be a crapshoot in any sport. But these are the two best teams. These are the two biggest juggernauts, the biggest stars. Isn't
there like 5 MVP/Cy Young winners in this series?
Probably. I actually feel like there would be more. But yeah. I mean, this is what it's all about, and I can't wait. I mean, I remember years ago, back when the Kings won their first cup in 2012. So around here, there's a lot of Ranger fans around here, and I fancy myself a Rangers follower. I enjoy the Rangers. I'm a fan of the Kings, obviously, but I'll root for the Rangers. My brother's a Ranger fan, good friend's a Ranger fan. So at the time in 12, I was like, I would love an LA New York final. Like, that's what it's all about. And then sure enough, a couple years later, it happened. So, and I just thought it was so cool. So I'm looking forward to it again. Hoping that this time New York comes out on top, which is a little bit awkward for me, but is what it is. But it's awesome. I can't wait. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, I think the enthusiasm now has, even when the Dodgers won in 2020, we never really kind of took hold of like what had actually happened because of everything, of course, going on in the world. So, I mean, that championship, there was really no parade. Fans didn't really get to celebrate it. So, yeah, it's great that the Dodgers actually won. And I, for one, think that was a legitimate World Series win. But now that their fans are now back in the buildings, there's like this fanfare now with the two teams involved, the two big cities, the big markets, the big names. I'm actually really pumped about this World Series. I think it's going to be really fun.
Random stuff coming in here saying, hey, I get it, but I'm here for hockey. Well, before we get back into hockey, we're doing back-to-back RIPs. RIP Fernando Venezuela.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huge Dodger. A lot of history there. Fernando Mania, was a huge thing in the LA area. So condolences to his family and what he meant to Dodgers fans. So.
For sure.
Random stuff wants us to get onto hockey, but Kelly M says here, I don't want to talk about the game last night. Vim, I don't want to talk. Is that a bad dream? So I think fans are kind of disappointed in the last night, and I get that. But let's start with a little bit of positive. The Anaheim game looked good. They looked fresh coming off that game, win 4-1. Goals from Kempe, LaFerriere, Fiala, and Anderson. And so you're looking at Anderson with a 2-point night there as well. A couple of Ep179 headers, but we won't throw that shade on him. But it looked like a strong game, and it looked like a way for the Kings. Hey, we're coming back from the East Coast. They're getting in their home beds. They looked fresh. I know Anaheim has played decent hockey for the first week of the season. So, Leo Carlson has had a couple key goals. So, I thought it might have been a closer game than maybe people thought because the Kings really didn't look good towards the tail end. But they kind of handled the Ducks there, right there, Russ.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of an even game. Maybe the first period was really kind of sleepy. Second period, a little bit more of the same, but then he got a little bit more helter-skelter, had a little bit more of an entertainment value to it. But then the third period came along, and the Kings just absolutely dominated. That was like they just turned on the Jets, and the Ducks, I think, had like 2 shots, and then toward the end of the period until they ended up pulling the net and then getting their 1 goal. But yeah, that third period, that was just the Kings utterly dominating. The Ducks, yeah, they've kind of showed their moments, but I mean, I've been watching some of the Ducks games, and they're just another bad. They look like a bad team again. I don't know what's going on with them. It seems like Cronin doesn't really have a finger on the pulse for that team. It's really hard to figure out because I feel like they should be a better team. They have the young talent that's kind of developing still, but they're just not showing the product on the ice yet. So the Kings had to win that game. I mean, they're coming back home, like you said. Wasn't technically a home game, but I give credit to a lot of Kings fans and Ducks fans that were there because the Dodger game was going on at the same time. So you were kind of thinking like, oh, maybe the attention would be kind of paid there, but that building was pretty full and really loud. So Kings fans made their voices heard, and I'm glad that they ended up go home a little happy with the 4-1 win.
You talking about the Ducks that have a better points percentage than the Kings? Those Ducks that aren't playing good hockey?
What, they have like 3 wins against the Sharks or something?
Hey, we're not talking about opponents. We're just talking about
okay.
They stink like that. I agree with Russ, and I've been a Ducks believer the last couple of years, as Russ knows, because he always laughs at me when I pick their team total over. I don't know. Like there's too much talent. They're really good young players. They have a sprinkle of veterans too mixed in. Like I don't know what it is. Like it's hard not to like. They look years away still. Yeah. Like this isn't, and this is the scary thing. Not to go on a tangent, but this is the scary thing if you're like ever a proponent for blow it up and just rebuild. Like look how long it's taking Anaheim. Watch how long it takes San Jose. Watch how long it takes Chicago. Look, Buffalo's in like their second or third iteration of a blow up rebuild. So it doesn't always go like you want it to go. So it's just, caution there, because this team, the Kings, are just a better team. I'm just so disappointed in that Anaheim performance. I know they got a couple wins, but that team is bottom 5 in like every metric at 5-on-5. That's a disappointing team for me. So good on the Kings handling their business and getting the job done. It was a dominant third, like you said.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Dostal, that game would have been, I think, a little bit more lopsided. Then going back to even the game before that, the Ducks played against the Avalanche, I think the same third period kind of happened there where the Ducks got out attempted like by like a 20 shot margin in the third period against Avalanche. And the same thing happened in the third period against the Kings. It was like, man, like, I don't know. Like, as a Kings fan, I'm happy about it. Mm-hmm. I've always hated the Ducks. I've considered them the number 1 rival. I live in Orange County, so I'm there in their backyard a little bit. But yeah, like, I'm with you, man. Like, you hear like some of these complaints about the Kings maybe accelerate the rebuild. There's not one single playbook for a rebuild. We could be in the same boat talking about how the Ducks or the Kings have missed the playoffs for 8 straight years, like going on the Ducks are. Like, I mean, could you imagine like Kings fans thinking the same thing? Like, man, when are you going to get back to the playoff picture? And the Ducks, like, it doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs again. And it's going on this long tenure. They've gone through coaches on coaches. And yeah, they got the young talent, but if you're not seeing any production out of it, what do you do then? And you keep waiting? Do you keep waiting for this young talent to develop? Which I think, obviously, there's talent there. You have Leo Carlsson, looks amazing. Olin Zellweger looks pretty good for a young player. Like we talked about, Lucas Dostal is a great young goalie who's been pretty much saving their ass these last few games. But besides that, like, I don't know. I don't know if they don't want to spend the money to find even better, more established talent to kind of help them out, because the contract they gave the Killorn was just horrible.
I was going to say, they're spending the money, Russ.
Yeah, but they still got some money to spend too, and they just haven't done it with it or anything with it. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm happy about it, but you do kind of miss those legitimate like freeway face-off rivalries in those games that we've seen, which when going back to the heyday of the Getzlaf Brown captaincy eras, those games were so fun.
Yep.
And it was kind of fun to like go into this one because the Ducks were coming off kind of an exciting overtime loss to Colorado. There's still some excitement in the air with that team. So to see the Kings and the Ducks fans kind of go back and forth, I heard chants left and right, which was really fun. But so you had a little bit more excitement in that aspect, and then for the Kings to come out with a 4-1 win, kind of dominating at the end. Kings fans had the last laugh.
OC Steve coming in here. Good. I was going to change the topic, though, so go ahead.
Real quick, on the Kempe goal, everyone needs to give credit for Andrej Kopitar with the stretch pass, as they should. That pass was incredible. But what the play Mikey Anderson makes is the type of play that I always harp on when I talk about puck-moving defensemen and when I talk about defensemen that aren't allergic to the puck. How many times have we seen a defenseman, notably numbers 5 and 6, get that puck and just head down and just continue to whack it and keep it pinned along the boards? Mikey, before he gets the puck, he's probably got Kopi talking to him, but here's Kopitar. He looks over his shoulder, makes the chip to Kopitar in a little soft area, and that immediately starts the rush. Rush offense starts from your own zone, and you can't do that unless you have players that can actually start the rush. Awesome stuff from Mikey Anderson. It was a subtle play. It was a little play, but that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. And then well done on Kopi and Kempe to finish that off. So
that pass by Kopitar, man, like
incredible.
It's funny because I didn't really notice until the Mikey pass until you mentioned it, and I kind of watched the replay. But when I saw that pass by Kopitar, I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. And then sure enough, you saw Kempe kind of streaking in, and I'm glad he finished because that was just an incredible play all the way around. It deserved a nice little cherry on top.
Kobe's had some of these long stretch, like the alley-oop passes historically to Dustin Brown. This one, I mean, he's so freaking good.
OC Steve coming in here with a team near and dear to my heart. How about them Swamp Rabbit jerseys, hair to the throne? So the Swamp Rabbits, I didn't know this until you just posted up, but they came out with a King's Reign like tribute jersey. I'm gonna put it up there for us. But
oh wow,
how about those bad boys?
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. Those are nice.
That's good.
I have to grab one of those shirts. That shirt's really cool. I like that logo.
That's really good.
Been wanting a Swamp Rabbits jersey since Making It Rain days. So So the tidings for the Anaheim game were then met with a late start. Joe was pretty much already an hour into sleep when puck drop happened. So, but the Kings go into Vegas for the last game of the stretch. And that game looked close for the first 10 minutes. And then the old Vegas Golden Knights with their top 5 power play put it out of reach early. What do we think about that game early, Russ? I mean, I thought the Kings kind of looked good in the beginning. Like they didn't look bad. I thought they had some wins and they were they were even with, shot attempts and they weren't really getting outplayed. And I thought the kind of momentum shifted on our power play when the Vegas killed that penalty pretty easily. There really wasn't any momentum, and that's kind of where it shifted.
Yeah, that was definitely the story of the entire game, I thought. Special teams. Yeah, the Kings were looking really good 5-on-5. Even the commentators were kind of pointing out that how well the Kings were playing at the end of this long road trip, which isn't really a road trip at these last 2 games, but I mean, it's still 7 straight games on the road. So to come out and play that pretty solid the first few minutes of the game, I thought it was looking pretty confident. I was like, okay, well, you're going to keep up with these Vegas Golden Knights. Usually these Vegas Kings games are pretty low scoring type affairs. But yeah, once that power play just it just took all the wind out of the sails of the Kings momentum when they had it going. And then as soon as Vegas got their power play opportunity and they scored, I'm like, of course. And the way it went in too was like, right in front. It's just like that. That's such a momentum killer. You're playing so well. You're probably mentally feeling pretty good about your game, physically playing pretty good. You're skating really well, cycling through shifts like Jim Hiller was. And even during his interview, I think it was in the first period where they talked about how, I think it was right after the first goal, they asked him, like, what do you think about your game? He's like, well, I'm feeling pretty good. It's just they got the 1 goal, but we're playing pretty good 5-on-5. And that's pretty much what it was. But, I mean, as that game went on, it was just the Golden Knights, just every chance they got getting the puck to the front, it seemed like it was going in. The Kings couldn't clear out a body in front, which was just horrible to watch, considering that maybe that was something that they had preached in training camp and throughout the preseason, at least in the offseason with some of these acquisitions. So to see the Kings get beat in front that often in one game against a division rival like that, that's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, I thought so. I ended up rewatching the game today. I was able to watch it today. That game started after 11 o'clock, closer to 11:30. It wasn't going to happen. I had nothing in the tank, so I did watch it today. And I'm
Joe probably would have needed some Peruvian flake or something like that to stay awake.
I'm watching the game. It's like first 6-7 minutes. I'm like, things look good here. What's going on? The shots they're out shooting them 5-1. Like they're playing pretty good. They're on the front foot. Nothing like crazy danger chances necessarily, but good start to a road game. And then we're all burying what happened. The Joel Edmondson takes the slashing penalty because he has his tomahawk just like he did in Buffalo. I was watching him. I was like, holy, what is he doing? He's trying to chop down a tree. Sure enough, it's a slashing penalty. And then the penalty kills seem to be a little less aggressive for me. At least we've seen them at times this year in the preseason really try to pressure the puck, pressure those top guys. That didn't seem to happen here. The shot goes through. I don't know what Vladislav Gavrikov's doing. He drops down and then he stays down. I don't know why he didn't get back up. That's, I guess, beside the point. He lays there and then the puck goes up into that. Stuff like that drives me absolutely up a wall. I don't love when defensemen drop to the ice, to be honest with you. That's what big guys love to do. And I don't think it always is necessary. But he dropped there and then he just laid there and then they chip in the goal. So, yeah, I mean, it was a little unlucky on the second goal. Obviously, the tip was also a power play goal. But I didn't think 5-on-5 the Kings were that bad. I mean, once it's 3-0, Vegas, I don't even want to say they took anything off the gas because they had a very good second period, did Vegas. And I think you look at the deficiencies of this Kings team, they really bore out in this game against a team that is just way better. You look at the third goal, I think it was, Joel Edmondson goes out of his way to make a hit at the red line for, we don't know why. So what happens? Ends up getting going back down low. Philippe Deneau misses his man in front of the net, which I guess technically would have been Joel Edmondson, but he was taken out of position by an unnecessary play. The fifth goal, I think it was. If you guys have any idea what Andreas Englund is doing on that play, you can let me know. There was another goal, one of Thomas Hurdal's goal. Russ just mentioned being tough in front of the net. He was very comfortable in the crease behind Joel Edmondson, which I thought was the whole reason why he was here. So again, I know this is going to sound like a broken record, but all this talk that you hear about tough to play against and tough in front of the net, just remember it's nonsense, okay? Don't buy into any of this stuff because Thomas Hurdle's not that big a guy. He was very comfortable. All these Vegas Knights were very, very comfortable, and they passed the puck around. What was the sixth? The sixth goal was a pretty goal, and it made the Kings look like bubble hockey players, the way they moved the puck around. And the thing is the Kings, I think, out-attempted them. But when you're Vegas and when you have that high level of talent, you can be way more efficient, and they were way more efficient. I don't think the Kings played necessarily poorly. It's just, as Russ said, Vegas, particularly as the game went on late in that third period, when they got chances, they just buried them. And it's hard, you give up 6 goals and you're never going to say the goalie played a good game when he gave up 6 goals, but it's hard to blame Rittich on a lot of those, frankly. I guess there's a couple of 6 that you're going to want back at some point, but he wasn't really given a whole lot of help. And I think what I loved about a couple of the Vegas goals, this is something I'd love to see the Kings do more, although their head coach very definitively said he didn't want to see east to west plays. There was plays where Vegas would get the puck. They would have an opportunity to shoot at the bottom of the circle, a clear-cut shot. This was 2 goals they scored off this. The player kept it, made the pass, cross again, back into the slot for an easier goal. Because the way you score goals in the NHL is you get goalies moving, you go east to west. This north-south and just shooting the puck because you have a free lane, that's not going to go in. And NHL goalies are going to stop that more often than not. The way to score is you get him moving. That was a clinic by Vegas in the offensive zone yesterday.
Dan P coming in here with PLD just scored an empty netter. Right now, he's got 5 points in 6 games, close to a point per game player for Washington.
Yeah, 3-point game today, not bad.
Yeah. And Ovechkin has 2 goals today, or 2 goals on the season. So quest for the scoring record is underway for Old Man Rivers over there. Yeah, I think it was tough because I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep watching this game. I'm gonna keep watching this game. It was just special teams was horrible. Like Vegas had their way with us special teams.
Yeah.
Our penalty kill wasn't even like we weren't on the puck. It was just really rudimentary for them. Tic-tac-toe, tag it up, bag it up. What I want to ask you, Joe, is I don't know if this is just me because I didn't really notice this much last year, but in that game there was a lot of the defensemen kind of just following Eichel around, like almost like man-to-man basketball. Like he was kind of like, so I saw like Clark up at the point, like guarding Eichel a ton. I saw Gavrikov do it a couple times. I don't know if it's like a new thing but the play that I noticed the most is like Brant Clark got hit by Eichel behind the net, like pretty hard. He got up, and it kind of seemed like a vindictive thing, like, okay, I'm gonna guard you and I'm gonna hit you back type deal. But then I noticed Gavrikov kind of float up there, and a couple other defensemen float up there towards the point. And I don't know if that's just man-to-man hockey, if that's the way it is supposed to go with goalie, but it seemed like we had 2 forwards down there. Like, okay, when is the defenseman to come back? We're out of position. Like, what's going on? So I don't know if you guys have noticed that in other games, or if it was just kind of glaring because they hit and then Clark followed him. What have you guys seen with that?
I mean, I did notice that in this game, and the Kings have played a man-to-man system, for a little while now. That said, I feel like there are times where there's switches where if a defenseman will kind of pass that man off to the forward, depending on the scenario and if it's in the D zone. So I don't know. I'd have to watch it again back to see if there was anything specific they were doing like with Eichel necessarily. But we've seen them play man-to-man before. To your point, though, I mean, I don't know that I recall offhand seeing defensemen maybe that high up. I'm sure it happened, I guess, but it did seem a little abnormal. But the Kings, one of their strengths is their two-way forwards, particularly their two-way centermen. So they're probably fairly comfortable having Andrei Kopitar being down low to cover for a defenseman and Phil Deneau and that. So, yeah, I mean, it's a system where we've seen it get picked apart in the past, generally earlier in the season. I think that Calgary game, Russ, that we had that, I'll never forget that spaces after the game, that chaotic Calgary game, I think was an earlier in the season game, but
I remember that.
we and I think I wrote an article after that game about how there was just a lot of missed assignments, but I think we tend to see that early in the season. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but I don't know. I still think it can be some early days type of stuff too.
I mean, it could be like Jack Eichel just noticing what's going on. He's like, oh, you're going to have this young defenseman trail me. I'm going to bring him all the way up top and then make him defend me up here. Like, that's probably what he does. I mean, yeah, like just echoed what Joe said. They've been playing man for quite a while. And it's funny because I remember last year or the year before that, there was one game against Vancouver that was just so glaringly like different by the way the two teams defend in their own zone, because the Canucks played such a zone type defense where the Kings were just kind of cycling the puck around the outside, and then just the Canucks were just stuck in this little box just waiting for them to make a move in the inside. And so yeah, like the Kings, so I don't know, maybe some teams just kind of take advantage of that opportunity and really notice what's going on. I know maybe there's some pick plays that happen, and that's where you have to see some like communication come to the forefront and say, okay, we got to pass on players left and right, and that's where it comes to play, where you see players like Phil Deneau. I think there was one goal, it was Phil Deneau and Trevor Moore were the only 2 players in front.
I think it was the third goal. Yeah,
and that's when Riddick got knocked over, and then it's just like, well, crap, like how are we going to clear out the front? You have one of your smaller guys in front. It's just like you got all these big defensemen. Maybe that's something you consider. Like if you're going to play a man, they're going to drag those big defensemen around outside of the perimeter. You're going to be stuck with the smaller guys in front. So I don't know. I think I've always been accustomed. I've always liked the man defense opposed to the zone myself. But if you're going to play against good players, they'll find ways to beat it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wonder, if you've got, the players that Vegas has, it's oftentimes going to be a mismatch if it's going to be man on man. So depending on how they set up in the D zone, if you've, I mean, listen, we love Brant Clark, but if you've got Eichel versus Clark, you're probably taking Eichel in that matchup, you know. So it's interesting. We'll see how things kind of continue on here, but I'd say we'll touch on it later. But I just don't think 5-on-5 they've actually been terrible, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Joe doesn't know if they've been terrible, but I know where I'm going to place my bets this year, and that's with our first sponsor here at THPN, which is going to be DraftKings. So if you're going to be betting on DraftKings, the quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck dropping for the 24-25 season. Get on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook, select your team, and place your first bet. Who's playing tomorrow night in the home opener? That would be your LA Kings. What is the lines looking like? Well, they're favored by 1.5. Over-under is 6 for the game. So place your bets in there. You know, see what you want to work with. Maybe do a little combo bet. Odds are subject to change, so get it in while it's hot. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers can bet just $5 to get 200 in bonus bets instantly. You said that right. $5 to get 200 bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get 200 in bonus bets. You just bet $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill and Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 age restriction applies, varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms, responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024.
I just saw the PLD empty net goal. So Tortorella is going to have the Flyers skating laps. It was like the defenseman tried to pass it off to a guy that was coming off for a change. The guy got on, didn't even know where the puck was. PLD just grabbed it and threw it in an empty net. It's pretty funny.
So PLD was also by the bench, probably having a snack, like laying down over there. Well, here's going to be our second installment for week 2 of Coast to Coast, talking about all your news for around the league. So strap in. We're going to be talking a little bit of hockey news, and then we're going to be jumping back into the Kings for the third segment. So Coast to Coast by Hockey Road. Joe, you wanted to start us off here with said team. Nobody expected the Capitals to be where they're at. What have you noticed from them and the kind of hockey that they're playing at this moment?
I did not see this coming because then again, maybe part of this is my bias because last year I thought they were just absolutely an atrocious hockey team. And maybe that just kind of seeped into this season a little bit. But then you take a step back and you look at kind of some of the additions that they've made. Obviously, not a lot of people that are Kings fans are going to be all that in on PL Dubois. But as you pointed out earlier, he's got 5 points in 6 games. They've got Andrew Mangiapane right now. Connor McMichael, I'm not necessarily a big fan of, but he's been a prospect for them. So maybe he's kind of finding his stride here, which would be, I would not have seen this coming, but maybe that's happening. Obviously they get Matt Roy, Jacob Chikrin's there. They've got another full season of Rasmus Sandin. So maybe I'm not giving the roster enough credit. Like, I don't think it's a playoff team. I didn't think that last year though, either, by the way. And I thought they were a worse team last year, but I don't know. Like, they're kind of doing it. They're not that. It's not as if it doesn't all seem like it's luck when I look at, you know, the 5-on-5 metrics, that whether it's natural stat trick or money puck, like they look, you know, they're hanging in there. You know, they're not a great team necessarily, but they're getting the job done. You know, I don't think, you know, them losing Kemper wasn't a big deal because Charlie Lindgren took the job from him last year anyways. And then they went and signed Logan Thompson to a real cheap deal. So their goaltending is in decent shape as long as both those guys stay healthy. So I don't know. I think this is, you know, again, I'm not going to call the Capitals a good team, but this is a better Capitals team than last year. I think we can probably confidently say that at least. And here they sit after back-to-back wins, 5-1. And when adjusted for scored 5-on-5, fourth best expected goals percentage in the league. Who saw this coming?
Yeah, I really like their defensive core, and they've been playing these games without Matt Roy the last few.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you got John Carlson, Roy back there, Sandin, Chikrin, Van Riemsdyk, and Farivari. That's pretty good, to be honest with you. I mean, and then you mentioned the two goaltenders. Lindgren came in last year, kind of surprised, and then took Kemper's job, and now you have Logan Thompson, who's always been a pretty solid netminder going back to Vegas. Decent team. I mean, their forward core is not as deep, and Ovechkin obviously isn't Ovi as the grade 8 as we've known before, but I mean, you can scratch some wins out of that division that they're in too. Like that division, the Metro is not that deep. Pittsburgh's kind of who knows what Pittsburgh is. Carolina, they're good, but even then they've kind of struggled a little bit. They're 3-2. But got Columbus, New York, and Philadelphia also too. So they're going to be able to find some wins out of that division. I wouldn't be surprised if they scratched out another playoff spot too.
You were 2 weeks ago there, Russ. You had the Flyers sneaking in. I thought.
I've been watching. So I've been watching some of these Flyers games because there's some exciting players. Obviously, you got Mitch Hoff. I'm a big Owen Tippett fan. But like some of these mistakes, like go back and watch that empty net goal. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, there's just such unlike a John Tortorella team to be making some of these mistakes, and I think they'll figure it out as the season goes along. But yeah, and there's too much talent there. I just think there's a lot of youth that's figuring out their NHL legs, and I'm sure they'll get it together as the season progresses.
So for the Caps, we talked about young guns for us, but they're young guns. Connor McMichael, I think he was a late first-round pick. Through 6 games, he has 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points, and 7 of those points are at even strength. So Connor McMichael is having a hell of a start to the season.
Yeah, and I think that's probably part of it too for me. Is I underestimated maybe what he could be doing. And I've harped on Tom Wilson. I think Tom Wilson's having a decent start of the season too. So
he's got 5 goals, in 6 games now? Yeah. And now he's going to be on Team Canada for the 4 Nations.
Oh my God. Yeah, it might be a stretch, but.
So what's not a stretch is Kel McCarr is one of the best defensemen in the league, if not the best defenseman. And right now he's leading the league in points. And I'm not talking about for defensemen. I'm talking about for anybody. So having a hell of a start. But you're pairing that with Colorado struggling right now. They won. I believe they won yesterday. So they're 3-4. Started out 0-4. So rambling off 3 straight. So they're kind of turning things around here. But 6th in their division. What have you seen from Colorado, Russ? I know you like kind of watching their games. And then Caleb McCarr specifically, is he taking his game to an even further level?
It's kind of funny because he's getting his points, but there's been some games that he's been quite bad. And there was one game, I forget who they were playing, but he said after the game that if he didn't play, they would have won that game because that's how bad he played. But even then, come on, it's like Cale McCarr. I think it's just Cale being Cale. They've got to find a goaltender. It's just that simple. I mean, I have a buddy who's a huge Avs fan. He texts me that every time they play. He just hates Georgiev. And I mean, I don't blame him because I haven't watched some of those games, and Georgiev's does let him some softies. But I mean, besides McCarr, their defensive structure is just non-existent. I mean, they just let guys do whatever they want in their own zone. Gerard's having an awful year, I feel like. Devin Taves has been hurt, which is also a big loss for them. He's probably one of the more underrated defensemen in the league. But I think they'll still be the Colorado Avalanche that we remember. It sounds like Nichutin's going to be coming back soon. Who knows with Landeskog? Landeskog, he'll be probably coming back here by the end of the year. So I think they'll end up figuring it out. It's just I think they won't take it to the next level unless they get a goaltender. And if I were them, I would just steer clear from trading with John Gibson because it seems like that's the name that's connected to them. Because I've never really been a big fan of Gibson. I think you're just really taking you're giving the Ducks a little bit of a break too, because I'm sure they would love to get rid of Gibson and his contract and just give Dostal the reins for the rest of the year. But so, I mean, I don't know what that type of player or the goaltender is going to fetch in terms of a trade, but I can't imagine it being that much. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Avalanche end up winning the division. Although the Jets, man, the Jets are fueling. They're looking pretty good. They're flying pretty high right now, undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado, like you said, with two of the guys, with Landeskog's out, Nichushkin's out, Arturi Lekin's out, Druin's hurt now. That's a lot. And then, like you said, Devon Taves has missed some time. So this is a thin team. They were thin at 2C coming into the season. Then you've got all these injuries. So I think if they can just keep their heads above water and kind of weather this storm, they should be okay. They're going to have to get some saves. I tend to agree that I don't love the idea of Gibson, but I hope they don't go kicking around the Tristan Jarry can, because I would think Gibson's better than Jarry for whatever that's worth. But yeah, they're going to have to start to get some saves here.
Is that another goaltender that's being scratched after signing a 5-year, $5 million deal?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. When are these teams going to learn, Joe? When are they going to learn?
They're not.
Hashtag goalies. Oh man. So we'll see how it goes on. I mean, getting healthy and doing those types of things. And I think it's cool. And I think I'm always the young kids, and the Calder race is off to a quick start. Logan Stankoven with 7 points. Mitchkov had a couple more tonight, so he's probably tied with him right now. Lane Hudson and Casey are tied for third with 4 points each. So pretty decent Calder race off to the start. Will Celebrini get healthy enough to get back into that race? I would assume so. He had 2 points on his first night, and he looked right at home there. So it was a hip injury, I believe. So we'll see. We'll see if he's going to be able to get back on there. But Toffoli's looking good, even though he was honest about their power play. He said our power play is straight garbage, but he's looking good so far with nobody being able to feed him the puck. So if Celebrini comes back, maybe Toffoli with another 30-goal season.
Seamus Casey, love that you mentioned him. Love Seamus Casey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Devils, man. I mean, that defensive core, holy hell. It's going to be so good in near future. But you touched on him, Lane Hudson. What's you guys are huge fans. I haven't really paid too much attention about Hudson besides all the Montreal Canadiens fans that hyped him up in the offseason, and now it seems like it's biting them back a little bit. I don't know. I think it's just more or less Toronto fans maybe making fun of him a little bit because some of the -3 type games he's having. Should the Canadiens be concerned about their young superstar?
Nope.
No, I think you're looking at what he was when his draft year. Everybody thought he was going to be super small, which he is. But the doctor said that he has slow growing plates. He's going to grow after 18. The doctor pretty much guaranteed it, and he grew after he was 18. And so, I mean, he's going to be a puck-moving defenseman. He's not going to be a stalwart in the crease, like shoving people out of the way. I mean, you saw it with him and Kempe. Kempe was pretty much like an older brother putting your hand on his forehead. Like, no, like I'm bigger than you. But the way he moves the puck, I mean, there's going to be a place for him in the NHL. Will he be to the level of Quinn Hughes or, the Kill McCarrs? Probably not with his size. I don't know if he'll be able to earn, LD1 type minutes, but he'll be able to quarterback a power play. He'll be able to do a lot of things in the NHL, and he'll be a very, comparable defenseman to an offensive defenseman. Everybody thought, I mean, you can kind of see like a Sean Dursey type, I guess, with him, where the offense is going to be there. It's going to be apparent. He's going to be able to move the puck. He's going to make some gaffes defensively, and maybe that's not in the mental state, and maybe that's going to be in the physicalness because of the size he's given up to a lot of these guys. And then he's always going to be able to put on more weight. I mean, he's still, I think, 20 years old, so he could put on some weight in the legs and get going. But I mean, it's nothing to shy at. 4 points for a rookie. He's playing really well, and for a team in Montreal.
Yeah, there's a lot of calls in Montreal. I don't know where he is now, but there's calls for him to start running the first PP over Matheson. But I think the other thing to remember is he'll probably struggle early defensively, especially. The fact that he looks this comfortable with the puck and kind of offensively is a good sign, I think. The defensive game, I think, will come as he starts to learn and get more accustomed to the pace of the game and the way decisions are made. And I think he's a smart enough player and a good enough skater that as he adapts to that, he'll be able to become a better defensive player along with that. Is he ever going to win a Norris for his defensive play? Probably not. but I think his impact.
Well, you don't win horses for defensive play.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's true. But no, I think this kid is electric. Yep, he's a young player on a young rebuilding team, so there's going to be games where it looks ugly. That's just the way it's going to be. But I don't think that I think Montreal should be. If LA is as excited about Brandt Clark, Montreal should be as excited about Lane Hudson. I'll put it to you that way.
It's a good comparison.
Yeah. And yes, Mr. 88, I'm still happy with Fiala over Faber. Just giving you a little time.
That's still a topic. We still talk about that.
Yeah. It's not what. Yeah. Both teams got really good players. We don't need to rehash this.
Should we should talk about Fiala, right?
Okay.
What do we think about Kev so far?
Well, look, before we do that, let's close out coast to coast. And we're closing out coast to coast, and then we'll get into our next segment here. So that was our second week of coast to coast here, talking about the league outside of our Los Angeles Kings. And speaking of the league outside of our Los Angeles Kings, you can buy tickets anywhere with our next sponsor here at Game Time. So Game Time is going to be our next sponsor here, anywhere you can buy tickets. So I know that people are excited for the game coming up here, the first home game, or maybe you're buying tickets to the World Series, trying to see the Dodgers win again. Now that fans are allowed to come in. So Game Time is where you can get tickets for shows, tickets for concerts, not just sports. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets easier to your favorite teams to play. See them play live. Filters out all the fluff, showing you all the incredible deals, the great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching for thousands of tickets. Talk about a super deal, how good it is to look at this app and say, hey, man, that price is there. I like that, or I like these seats better. It's all in one location. You click on the seat, you have a 360 view. You can move around and see what the actual tickets look like. So Game Time Picks, curates your likes and dislikes on just sports, concerts, comedy, theater. You get the all-in pricing, so no surprise fees upon checkout. Like I said, you get the panoramic view before you buy. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference between your price if the tickets were to go down in your section. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy on the ticketing industry. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Picks. Download the Game Time app now. Create an account. Use code THPN for 20% off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code with THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. I know I downloaded the app the other day because I'm going to get my 20% with those. I happen to take a peek over. So if anybody still hasn't got their tickets for last night, I'm looking at them right now. In the second little bowl there, PR 5 row 8, 137 all in for the home opener. I see some in the lower level, where the Sharks will shoot twice, but still lower level, 113 all in, second level, 99 all in. So there's still plenty of tickets left for tomorrow night. Sharks bottom feeder, so not going to call a win now, but I think it's a pretty good chance that you probably see a W. So go ahead with Game Time, code THPN, get 20% off. Go see the home opener. Go see your Kings play, and hopefully pick up 2 points there. So our next segment is going to be a brand new one for you guys this year. We're bringing in one. I know Joe is loving the stats. He's a stat guy. So, we're about to sit down to class. So grab your notebook, get settled in. The teacher is in the house for our first segment of Joe's Whiteboard. Yeah, Teacher Joe. All right.
That's pretty well done.
We're getting here. So Teach, I didn't bring an apple today for our first day of class, but I did bring some visual aids for you as you asked me to. Trying to suck up to the teacher, get a little extra credit. So let's throw our aids up here. Yeah. First one here for Joe is titled Youth Energy. So Joe, break it down for us.
Yeah, listen, we've talked a lot about this line since they've been put together, and it's led by Alex Turcotte and the start to the season that he's having. Alex Laferriere has played really well. He started the season obviously in the top line, but what we're seeing from Turcotte and Laferriere, especially since Fogel's been put together, according to Money Puck, if you were to look at in the top, if lines have played at least 15 minutes together, they're in the top 7 in terms of expected goals for percentage. They've played really well together as a line. And you've got up here, I've got overall shot contributions that I'm tracking, which is this is at 5-on-5. This is shot attempts. That comes from natural stat trick, and then I track slot passes and I track shot assists. So a shot assist is a pass that leads directly to a shot attempt. So who's creating and kind of creating these shot opportunities. And in terms of the total shot contributions, you're looking at Warren Fogle. He pretty much shoots from everywhere. Alex Turcotte, who is among the team's highest in terms of shot assists per 60. And then Alex Laferriere is 5th on this list in shot contributions per 60 minutes. So you're looking at 3 guys that all skate well. Fogle, I didn't love playing with kind of higher end talent with Fiala and with Byfield, but he's fitting in just nicely here with Turcotte, Laferriere. These 3 seem to really complement each other. So when I talk about this line, when it comes to young energy, they're bringing it. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing Andre Lee on this screen. The reason Andre Lee is on this screen, he is tied for 2nd on the team in slot passes. So you're talking about a guy that doesn't get a lot of ice time, the lowest ice time among forwards on the team. And yet when he's out there, he's making plays to the slot that are leading to shot attempts. So for me, the way I track slot passes is it's a pass that goes to the slot area that leads to a shot attempt. So if there's a pass that connects to the slot, but it doesn't lead to a shot attempt, that doesn't count for me. It needs to lead to a shot attempt. And he's had 4 times in this young season that he has connected on a slot pass, which again, considering his ice time, not bad. And I would say this is anecdotal. I'd have to go back and watch these, but his more so than like an Anze Kopitar or some of these other guys that lead in slot passes, his tend to come from behind the goal line, and he's making that pass from a low into the slot area. So good on Andre Lee. I'm sure we're seeing a lot of calls for Akil Thomas to come into the lineup here. It's probably going to be at Andre Lee's expense, but then again, we did see him kind of shift up with Anze Kopitar and Adrian Kempe last minute. So for you guys, I don't know if there's anything that you guys that's jumped out to you guys in the young with some of these young guys, but these are some of the things that I've noticed in some of the stats that, you know what, there's reason to be excited about these guys. There's some numbers that back this stuff up.
I mean, the Fogle, Turcotte, Laferriere line, and it just goes without saying, you just watch a game, and every time they're on the ice, they're noticeable. It seems like the puck's in the offensive zone, it's being moved around quickly, and then shot attempts are being made.
Yep.
The point, it's so apparent. It's easy. Like, I mean, I feel like the last 2 games too. I mean, even at practices, Jim Heller just mentions them. He talks. I remember the practice I went to before Anaheim. He talks about how this line was flying around. He talked about them after the game in Anaheim, and then he talked about the game yesterday, or talked about them yesterday, mentioning how he hopes everyone else can watch them play because he loves the way they play so much. They almost kind of remind me about the nice line that we used to see. It was like they move the puck around just like them, and it turns into nice scoring chances all the way around. Alex Turcotte, we talked about in the last show. I mean, he's just a puck hound as a centerman. He's on top of the puck everywhere. Alex Laferriere looks a lot more comfortable with the puck on the wall, I feel like, than he did last year. And it's turned into quick passes that have turned into shot attempts for himself and for Warren Fogle. And I agree. Fogle has looked so much better and so much more comfortable playing with these 2 players. I feel like, or I wonder if it's more like he's got like a more of an alpha mentality now, knowing that he doesn't really have to play like more of a skilled game. It can be more of maybe this more north-south type game, but even a little bit more skill involved with Turcotte and Laferriere kind of adding. So yeah, I love it. And with Andre Lee, it's weird because you watch that 4th line go out there, and he's the most noticeable of the 3 that are out there. Trevor Lewis is. Yep. We talk about Trevor Lewis. It is what it is. Tanner Jeannot, he's had some decent games, but even then, I feel like he's kind of disappears at times. But every time Andre Lee's on the ice, I don't know if it's just a 6'5" frame, but he's making things happen, whether it's throwing his body around or just getting involved in the offensive zone. And I think that's part of the reason why he was moved up to the top line.
I was just going to say, Russ, like it could have been either Jeannot or Lewis that got moved up with that, but it wasn't. And you know, this is kind of twofold. Now, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means for the next game and what they're going to do for lines. You totally understand Hiller wanting to jumble some things up when a game's not going your way. We've seen that before. I get that. Whether or not it sticks next game, who knows? But there's two things that I like. Like A, so he obviously loves this line, so he's going to keep the Turcotte line together. B, he said, okay, he wanted to move some things around. He wanted to get Byfield back down the middle. How do you do that? You put him with, you got to find somebody to play left wing, and that's what's interesting up top. And it was Andre Lee, which again, it may seem kind of crazy. I don't know that overall if he can stick there in long term necessarily, but he's got a little bit of creativity to his game. He's obviously a big body. Whether or not he can keep up pace wise with a Kopitar and Kempe, I don't know. But the other thing I liked about that change, Byfield, Fiala, more, much better. That's where I want to see Fiala with Byfield. I don't want to see Fiala with Phil Deneau. I need Deneau to be playing like minutes wise. He's a valuable player. I think Phil Deneau's a good NHL player. I think but I just need Fiala to be playing with a Quentin Byfield, and I think those two need either a higher level playmaker or somebody that can score, a shooter that can score. And Trevor Moore's off to a slow start this year. I like the combo of getting Fiala, Byfield, and Moore. I would love to see that line kept together for next game.
Yeah, I mean, so you liked the way that Hiller ended that game with Lee at the top, and then the fourth line ended up being Lewis, Deneau, and Jeannot.
Yeah, so here's the thing with that, and this is the thing is, they don't have. We've talked about they're missing a top. They didn't go get a top six winger, so they're going to have. This is what it is. They're missing a top six winger. So until that is addressed, you've seen already Laferriere, you've seen Byfield back there, and now you've seen for a period, right? I think it was for one period. It was Andre Lee. So I don't know how much he's going to stick with that, but clearly he's seeing that something isn't working and he's shifting it. And it's one thing to run ruckshot over Montreal and Anaheim, but when you're getting your faces caved in by the Vegases and the Torontos of the league, something's going to have to give here. So, and it may be just shuffling deck chairs because at the end of the day, the defense is the defense. So it may not matter, but trying to get the most out of your forwards. And Russ, you asked the question a little while ago about Kevin Fiala. Ironically, his two most common line mates are Byfield and Deneau, yet not together, right? Because he played the first few games with Byfield and Fogle, then he played with Deneau and Moore. Now he had the third period opportunity to play with Byfield and Moore, and I would like to see that continue. So I guess, does that mean Phil Deneau's quote unquote fourth line center? Well, what did Jim Hiller say the other day? What's best for the team, right?
People being uncomfortable. Oh, sorry.
Hey, no, you're right. No, so right now, Kopitar continuing to play well. Byfield, I think you got to get Byfield and Fiala together. At least give it an extended look to see if it can click. I don't want to I don't want to keep going to it and then away from it if it doesn't work. I'd like to see them stick with those two together for a while, and then see if that sticks and see if it can hold. And I think they need a wing. They don't need a workhorse winger like a Warren Fogle. I think they need somebody that can either score or really create plays. And I think Moore is a good fit there.
And I think that's why I was
question.
Oh, sure, Brandon. Yes. With the blue hat.
Yeah. So I'm seeing here in your demonstration that the expected goal share is 78.6. I mean, to my eye, I'm seeing that this line is working it. But how is a line like this in a team that didn't go out and get a goal scoring winger? How does a line like this keep consistency throughout a game for a team maybe that has ups and downs throughout the year? How does a line like this keep consistency?
So here's what I like with. I've talked about this before, where I like to try, when I can, create mismatches throughout the lineup. And I think this is an opportunity where you have this line. Now, I'd have to go back and actually look these last few games to see their opponents, to see exactly who they've played. But this is probably the way they skate. This is really a line that can be a mismatch for other teams' third lines. I mean, especially if Turcotte's playing to this level. Like the second he slips or falls off, then we've got a little bit of a problem. But Turcotte's definitely outplaying the way I expected him to, I think. I certainly didn't expect this type of a start. And I think as much of the tires of Turcotte are getting pumped, we really got to lean into Laferriere. He's playing some really good hockey right now. And I think we talked about it throughout the summer. Like last year, he went into camp and I don't know if he expected to make the team or what he thought of his chances of making the team, but he ends up making the team right out of camp, stays all year. Now, I just think it's a different mindset. Now he's got a year under his belt. He knows what to prepare for. He's going into the offseason not wondering, am I going to make the team? Or he doesn't have to. He's going to go. He's got the confidence of I'm an NHL hockey player now. He can train as such. He can prepare for the offseason without that type of nervousness or pressure or uncertainty. And I just wonder if that kind of eases him a little bit. And he looks, as Russ said, way more comfortable out there on the ice. And it didn't matter if he's playing with Kopitar and Kempe like he did last year or at the start of this year, or whether it's with Turcotte and Foegele. He looks like a much more poised player. I don't think he's going to score 30 goals. He's scoring at a heck of a rate right now that is going to settle down, but he's playing some good hockey. Russ mentioned his wall play. And I think that the way Foegele and the way Turcotte and Laferriere play their game, Foegele complements it, I think, a little bit better than he would have hired. So I guess, Brandon, to kind of answer your question, just they seem to fit stylistically together. And Turcotte this is the Turcotte I think a lot of people were hoping to see for a few years now.
Yeah, with Laferriere, like that was the question coming into the years. Could he live up to that first line billing? And I'm sure he's probably thinking the same thing. Like he's like, man, you got me playing with Andrzej Kopitar, this Hall of Famer, and Adrian Kempe, this 40-plus goal scorer in his career. And man, I gotta up my game a little bit. And that's where I was probably worried a little bit. I was happy for the opportunity for him and could maybe showcase his skill set a little bit more. But I think this fits him so much more because now he's playing with a young player in Alex Turcotte, who's he's a couple years older than him, but even still, like in terms of experience, they're right there with each other. And Warren Foegele is like he's looking across the way at Warren Foegele, not thinking like, hey, I got this skilled like all-star player in my wing, but I got a pretty solid established player who can keep up with me pace-wise and still put the puck in the back of the net at times. I really liked the goal that he scored the other day too in Vegas. Like that was quick stick lift, puck in the back of the net. That was beautiful. But so yeah, I think this is where we're starting to see Alex Ferrier really shine because he's got that confidence. You're playing with a really true confident Alex Turcotte, and actually talked to him the other day after practice, and he said one word: consistency. That's all he wants to preach. He's like, he loves where his game's at right now, but he just wants to put it pile on one after another. Just keep him going because you once you see that drop off, I'm sure that's where it's going to affect you mentally. It's like, sure. Okay, well now how do I climb out of this? So he just wants to continue playing this type of style that he has, and Hilliard's got to keep him.
You don't have to climb out if you never fall in, right?
Exactly, and Hilliard's got to keep it together, and that's kind of where I was a little disappointed with the move from Byfield from center to wing, which I get. Like you have to figure out a way to get Turcotte up in the lineup, get him more minutes because he was only getting like 8 or so minutes a night. So now that he's playing this kind of 3C, 2C type role, he's got more ice time going forward. But I feel like with Byfield now, it's like you're just kind of like that Office scene where he's like snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. You're going back and forth, and you're like, dude, you got to give him time. You got to give him a runway at the center ice position. That I'm sure the same thing with Laferriere, where you're talking about like, okay, you're a centerman. You're a centerman throughout. Everybody's preached it the entire offseason. Rob Blake talked about he's a centerman. Jim Hiller mentioned, oh, he's a centerman. And now all of a sudden, like 4 games in, he's back on the wing, right where he was last year. You got him. I just think you have to put Byfield back in center and give him a leash. Yeah. Say, okay, here's 15, 20 games or so. If it doesn't work out, then we'll figure something else out. Maybe if they're not winning games, I get it. But even then, like this is the franchise center that you drafted to go to be assume the throne for Kopitar, right? You have no one else in the wings. This is it. If you don't have a center in 2 years, the Kings are screwed. They don't have a franchise center anymore. It could be Alex Turcotte, but I don't know if he could be a number 1 center in the National Hockey League. So it's like you have to figure out Byfield if he can figure out that type of style that he had or that play that he had the preseason because he looked really good playing with Kevin Fiala. And I think if you have him now playing with Trevor Moore, I'd like to see those 3 get a little bit of a longer glimpse together. So I'm curious to see what Hillard does tomorrow morning with that practice.
Me too. One more thing on this too, because the way I just looked yesterday at yesterday's game for 5-on-5 time on ice. Andrzej Kopitar led forwards with 1340. The lowest ice time for a forward at 5-on-5 was Trevor Lewis at 11:19. It's not a drastic difference. Like so just go up at like Adrian Kempe played he was 9th on the team in ice time at 5-on-5. Turcotte was 8th, but we're talking like we're talking 2 shifts worth of time. I know there's some penalties and stuff in last night's game, but the Kings, they're not leaning on any one line. They're not leaning on any player or combo. And we've kind of talked about that before the season, that they're absent a significant, a line or whatever to go to, which is again why I want to see Byfield and Fiala put together, because I think they can help complement maybe the Kopitar Kempe threat, which is still probably the team's top threat as far as a duo. If they can get more with Fiala and Byfield, then maybe we have something.
Is this we've talked about the youth getting opportunity, and I think opportunity meets seizing the opportunity. Has the youth seized this opportunity? Are we finally going to see Trevor Lewis out of the lineup sparingly throughout the season? No. You still think it's going to be 82?
Well, there's no Akil. We haven't seen Akil Thomas yet, and I don't think.
But that's my point, though. Like, if Andre Lee wasn't playing well, you would probably have already seen Akil Thomas play some hockey, right?
Yep.
So now the only weak link on the offensive roster at this point is either Jeannot, who they've paid money for and brought in via trade, or Trevor Lewis. So, like, is the youth finally seizing the opportunity to force Hiller to remove Lewis from the lineup?
But yeah, I was gonna say, what was interesting though is I think he made that change after the Englund goal, and that was the one where Lewis and all 3 of them just left the zone and kind of left Englund hanging, even though it was just like a weak clear up the wall right into a Vegas defender. It was just awful. But that was really when he made that change, and that's when you saw Deneau back in the center position and Lewis back on the wing. And it's like you hear these calls for Akil Thomas to get ice time, and I get it. Like, I want to see Akil on the ice. I think he's deserved at least a look or a few games or so, but it wasn't going to be at the expense of Trevor Lewis, who was playing center the last few games.
It ain't going to be in the home opener for Trevor Lewis. Say that right now.
It could be. I mean, that's the thing. I was like, okay, well, if you now move Trevor Lewis to the wing, like, that's where, okay, I could see an opportunity for Akil Thomas to get a spot there, which it's the Kings we're talking about, obviously.
Jeannot and Thomas?
It'd be surprised. I could see Lee. Well, if Lee's going to be on the top line, let's just say they keep the lines the way they were to end the game. So now you have Akil, Deneau, and Jeannot together. So, I mean, it'd be a stretch to see them bench Lewis. I just don't think it'll happen, unfortunately.
Maybe they bench him and then he plays against Utah.
There you go.
I'll believe it when I see it with him coming out. I think Jeannot probably has a better chance at coming out than him. Not to say that that's a great chance, by the way. But I like if you were to ask me today, like, gun to my head, who's coming out for if Akil Thomas comes in, it's going to be Andre Lee. That's what I think. But we'll see.
All I know is Caleb Jones has played hockey, and he needs to be back in the lineup.
Oh my!
Can we talk about the defensive pairs? Like,
yeah, because the next segment is going to be the PK, and it'll lead into 5-on-5 defense. So next slide, Teach.
Jesus.
Let's see it. So team stats. I talked about this. I want to hit on some 5-on-5 stats and just really where the team ranks. They're in the top 5. If you look here, if you're watching on YouTube, in Corsi for percentage, expected goals, scoring chances, they're 6th. They're in the top 10 in high danger chances. This shouldn't be too surprising. They're 26th in shooting percentage. These stats per natural stat trick, they're 10th in save percentage. This is all 5-on-5. Okay, so like that doesn't sound that bad. But when you take a look at, well, what could be going wrong? Well, their power play is 23rd in the league at 14.8%, and their penalty kill is 26th in the league at 73.3%. And I want to lean into the penalty kill a little bit, because if you listen to this show at all last year, I always thought the talk about the penalty kill was overrated. I know they were a top 2 ranked team in the penalty kill, but when you looked at their expected goals against per 60, it really wasn't that good compared to, I think, a lot of the league. What they got though were saves. They had the number one penalty kill save percentage in the league, and that's going to cover up a lot of deficiencies. That's not to say the penalty kill still wouldn't have been above average or even good, but for it to be a top 2 penalty kill throughout the season, I just thought was a little overstated and a little overblown, because I think there was being covered up by saves, and then sure enough, you get to Edmonton and they just ripped them apart in the playoffs. Look at this year so far. Obviously, the sample is still much smaller. We've only got 7 games under our belt, but the expected goals against per 60 is better through the first 7 games this year on a per 60 basis than it was all of last year. Yet, the penalty kill save percentage is 26th in the league. That's not good. You're 27th in the league. I'm sorry, it's even worse than that. It's 27th in the league. So there's your difference right now. Now you can make the case that the structure of the penalty kill being better last year led to worse shots, so maybe that helped the save percentage. That's fair. I think that there's a reasonable case there, but over the course of the season for the penalty kill save percentage to be that good, it didn't seem to jive with the expected goals against necessarily, which is why I was a little skeptical with it. And this year, they're not getting a lot of saves. Now, you look at yesterday's game, the 2 power play goals Vegas scored in the first period in particular, the stolen goal, that had 2 deflections. That's not on Rittich. The first goal, like I said, I don't know what Vladislav Gavrikov was doing when he laid down. Now, I don't know if maybe, Rittich could have still had an opportunity to get that one, but he wasn't put in a good spot there. So this isn't to say that, like, it's all on Rittich or the goaltending. It's just the simple fact that the Kings aren't getting anywhere near the amount of saves they were getting on the penalty kill last year. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are and what you've seen from the penalty kill, and really how you differentiate this, because I know, Randy, you put together how we have the 5-on-5 stats, which are pretty good, yet the penalty kill stats, which are abysmal, and frankly, that goes along with the power play too, which is a bottom 10 power play right now as well. So really, special teams is killing this team, you could say, for the first 7 games. I don't know if that's what you guys, if that seems to jive with where you guys are watching, but that's what it looks like in the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the energy is non-existent on the PK. The first couple of games, like, I was like, okay, like, this team, they're hounding the puck, they're getting after it. They're like, it against Vegas, they just like settled in. They took out some lawn chairs, cracked open a cold one, and just sat there and let Vegas skate around them all night. Like, it was no urgency, no intimidation, no anything, and like you said, Gavrikov was out there making ice angels in the crease, when he fell over. So to me, it's all effort. I mean, you look at the stats with Corsi and everything like that, and then the Turcotte line we just spent 20 minutes. That's all about effort, and the team is putting effort in 5-on-5. We're constantly hounding other teams 5-on-5, and the broadcast last night was talking about it. Like, they were saying, "Hey, this team's good at 5-on-5. This team is creating chances. They're good in the neutral zone. They're skating really well with the puck. They're trying to make long ice passes and stuff like that." And so, but the PK is just the first couple games. I was like, okay, man, we're getting after it. Like, the energy's there, and then it just kind of fell off like that. And I don't know if it's the changing of the D pairs. I don't know if it's who's been getting in the penalty box, but overall, it's been straight trash with the penalty K the last couple games. And I think it comes from an effort standpoint.
Yeah, I think last game was just such a difference from the game before in Anaheim, because I'll take it with a grain of salt. I think Anaheim was coming in with like an 0 for power play on the season against the Kings. But I mean, even then, like, the Kings were just like all over them on the penalty kill. And it was like a clinic in terms of PK and that aggressive type of PK that they were looking for. Even Jim Hiller kind of tipped his hat a little bit in terms of like, tipped his hand a little bit in terms of what they actually want to achieve on the penalty kill. And he mentioned the word, I thought was pretty interesting. He mentioned the word triggers that they're looking for in terms of when to increase aggression on the PK. And I kind of noticed that during the game. If you go back and watch that Anaheim game, and on the PK especially, anytime a Ducks player had their back against or their back turned and they were facing the boards, there was a Kings player just straight onto him, like gunning right for them. And I'm guessing that's one of those triggers he's looking for, is like, if you see the back of an Anaheim Ducks player or any player in front of you or facing the wall, go after them. Don't let them turn around and set up. And I think that's what the Kings did so well in the Anaheim game, where their PK looked so good. But in the Vegas game, Brandon, yeah, I'm with you. Like, there were times where they just like were like, okay, we'll go ahead and set up, and you do you, and we're just gonna get in our little box whatever, or diamond, and then let you move the puck around. And sure enough, Vegas, they got the skill. They got Alex Pietrangelo, you got Jack Eichel, you got Thomas Hertl. They'll figure it out. And sure enough, they did. You have Mark Stone in front. He did whatever he wanted. And so, yeah, I think the PK will grow. It's still a new system. It's this aggression. When he talks about that word triggers, that I was like, kind of opened my eyes a little bit to something to watch for as the season goes on. So I'm not going to say that it won't get better, but it's something to watch for when these next few games to see if they maybe figure it out, or if there's something they have to adjust and they can't figure it out. But I mean, you're playing against the Sharks team tomorrow. It's going to be a good game to kind of practice some of those situations.
Yeah, that's exactly right too, Russ. With the triggers, whether it's there's a few of them there, and it's the same thing. A lot of times that I really harp on my guys too. That from a coaching standpoint is because I want that too. I want that aggression. I want you jumping guys, and a lot of it is the second you see the back to the play or a puck bobble, or if there's something wrong, if you see his head looking down at his feet, the second any of those happen, you're jumping them and you're immediately putting pressure on them. And this could be a discrepancy in talent from a Vegas and Anaheim standpoint. Vegas, a lot less of that probably happening. So maybe the Kings were playing a little bit more passive because Vegas was much more in control with what they were doing.
I'm looking at the stats here, 5-on-5, and to switch it back to the 5-on-5, and then maybe how this team starts winning hockey games on a more consistent basis. And we saw the power play be really well in the first beginning of the season, not have those bobbles and stuff like that. They kind of struggled as of late. And then you're looking at 26th in shooting percentage, 5-on-5. So if you're not getting the offense 5-on-5 and then you're not having the power play help, this team's going to have to win a lot of close games. We've seen a couple routes on this road trip. And so it's a small sample size, but the north-south game that everybody or that the players talk about playing needs to get a little bit more east-west and create those shots and openings and move. And that's maybe not every line's MO or game, but you best believe one of the best puck handlers, and hopefully he's back with Byfield, that line needs to be setting up north, south, east, west, diagonal, wherever they can set up to get going. So I think it's just an interesting thing how the shot percentage is super low. It was something that has been a Kings thing lately with the team and the way it's kind of been put together. But it doesn't have to be for every single line. And you have a 40-goal scorer in Kempe. You have a super talented player in Kevin Fiala who's leading the team in goals or tied with the leading goals with LaFerriere. And then you have a scorer on that line too. So, there's really no reason that the shooting should be that bad 5-on-5, especially if they're generating that many shots. I just think sometimes I'm seeing a little bit of indecisiveness and maybe making an extra pass when you shouldn't make an extra pass and not trusting the shot. I'm seeing that from Brent Clark quite a bit on the defensive side. He's trying to find that extra assist or sauce pass to another player when he has a good shot and he could just shoot. It might not be a goal, but it's going to get on net. It's going to cause a little bit of a ruckus. So maybe a little bit of both. Kind of getting more pucks than at 5-on-5, but maybe trying to get a little bit more creativity as well. It's a thin line to walk there, Joe.
It is. And, the thing is I've talked about we've talked about how they needed another top 6 scoring winger. They really didn't acquire that. So there is that lack of high-end talent on this team. In the same vein, this is a team that's controlled shot attempts for a long time now. And it's not as if they're they have zero talent. You mentioned Adrian Kempe scored 40. We all know Trevor Moore scored 30 just last year. Kevin Fiala's got a 30-goal season under his belt. Anze Kopitar has scored 4. He's a 70-point player as recent as last 2 years. So it's not as if there's no talent. And so you would expect that should come up a bit. But again, I mean, the Kings' shooting percentage at 5-on-5 over the last bunch of years, this is not abnormal for them to be where they are. I think their average is around 9%. So this is where they are. This is the type of team that they are. I mean, they're not a high efficiency team when it comes to shooting percentage. And I'll add, and I'm going to, I am a believer in it starts from the back end. That's just my belief. Maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't know that about you, Joe. Couldn't tell. Surprise, surprise. Especially if you're lacking the high-end talent that some of these teams have, right? You look at what Toronto has and Vegas has. LA can't match that. But so it's nice and all to have the work ethic and go work hard, and that's what you want, that's what you need. But to expect that to beat those high-end teams is a lot to ask when they don't have a lot of help right now. You look at the back end right now, it's not good. I'm sorry, it just isn't very good. Like, Jordan Spence has not played to our expectations. The fact that Joel Edmondson and Andreas Englund are in the same defensive six is astonishing in 2024. I think Gavrikov has been the team's best defenseman. I don't know if that's good or bad. I still don't think Mikey's had a really good start. Brant Clark.
That pairing with Mikey is second. It's the second best expected goal share.
Yeah, so that pairing has been very good. That pairing has been since they put Gavrikov there. But again, that's not your top pair. You need something in terms of offense, and they're not going to get it from Anderson and Gavrikov, right? That they're going to dominate the expected goal share in large part because they're probably going to defend, I would suspect. I don't know if the stats bear that out, but that would be my guess. Although, you look at Mikey Anderson at 8 shot attempts yesterday, so he's firing from the top. But
so to finish that, it's expected goals for is 3.3, expected goals against 1.3, expected goals per 60 minutes is 3.14, and expected goals against is 1.24.
Okay, so I mean, and Brant Clark has showed flashes, but he's still he's in his kind of growing and learning situation that A, I think could have happened last year, and B, I don't think he's getting any help from his partner. But so I just at the end of the day, I don't think the defensive core is good enough. I'm a genuine believer that offense starts from your back end. And I think they're severely lacking there. And that's not to say that you need 6 offensive defensemen, but you just need guys that are a little bit more capable than what they've got right now. So I think, and I really think the loss of Drew Doughty, there was a lot of people, I know we were really, pumping Jordan Spence and trying to say the loss may not be as significant. That's a significant loss. Not, you lost your number one defenseman and you had to move, Spence didn't fill the role good enough. And now you've had to move Gavrikov up there where, other teams have a little bit more of an established, I think, top 2 or 3 or 4 guys. And, that's a big loss. So that I don't think that should be understated, the loss of Drew Doughty.
I mean, even with the loss of Drew Doughty, actually, these 5-on-5 numbers are pretty promising, to be honest with you. Considering the defensive core that they got out there, I'm happy with it. I think some of those shooting percentages, it just goes back down to that uncomfortable comment that they made in the offseason where they just got to go to the front of the net, and they're not. That's what Vegas did in the game last night. It's just, if you're going to get the shooting chances, okay, like throw it in a pad, then clean it up in front. And you got to get a little dirty if you don't have the skill, the high-end skill to maybe go a little bit more east-west. But I mean, going back to the defensive pairs, Andreas Englund's got to come out of the lineup. What are we doing here? There's been a couple moments already that have just totally burned the Kings, and it's just happened in Montreal. I know we got the goal, but let's be honest, it's just a seeing eye goal that Montembeault should have stopped. And he had a god awful turnover that turned into a grade A scoring chance for Montreal. Luckily, Rittich was able to save it, but he didn't save him last game. It was just that another god awful clearing attempt that led to a goal when he's out there with the 4th line of all lines, and it turns into a Vegas goal. And it's what are we doing? Caleb Jones had 2 games and he looked really good, and you still decide to put Englund back on the ice. It's not even, it's negligence at this point that they continue to play that player. And then to kind of go into the Edmondson Clark pair, is it to anyone's surprise that it's not working? And I know it's a small sample size, but I mean, I'm looking at Evolving Hockey right here, and among all defensive pairs with at least 40 minutes played, there's 87 of them. The Joel Edmondson Brant Clark pair is 76th. You know who's first as a big old slap, as the top 2 is a big old slap in the face to the Kings fans? Number 1 is Sean Walker and Shane Gostisbehere with Carolina. Number 2 is Brock Faber and Jonas Borodin in Minnesota. So
And
there you go,
the Gostisbehere Clark or Walker, I think that's their third pair.
yeah. I mean, Carolina's always been known as like this heavy
Yep.
Corsi share team, so it is what it is. But I mean, actually, it's a little bit of a to make it a little bit put a smile on your face. Gavrikov and Anderson are actually third in expected goal share in the league, so they're playing really well. You have a really good, solid number one pair in Anderson and Gavrikov. They're not going to provide a ton of offense. We get it. But when
that should be your second pair. It'd be ideal.
Yeah, and then when you throw out your other two pairs that are featuring Andreas Englund and Joel Edmondson, it's the drop off is so drastic. It's absolutely maddening to see them play together.
Look at go watch the game last night, the Edmondson Clark pairing, and watch Joel Edmondson. Joel Edmondson was like single-handedly responsible for at least half the goals that were scored. The penalty that he took was, I don't know why you have to wind up like a tomahawk whenever you go to slash somebody, but he might want to figure out how to hide that a little bit better. The play where he takes himself, there's no need to go out of your way to hit a guy at the red line when you're a defenseman like that. Totally unnecessary, takes himself right out of the play. And then I think it's the sixth goal, which was a very nice passing play by Vegas, I'll admit. But just go watch number 6. He cannot keep up. He can't process the quickness of the play. And that's not to totally absolve Brandt Clark, of course, here, but his partner is doing him absolutely no favors. And Russ, to your point, that pair was absolutely caved in yesterday. A 29% Corsi. They were outscored 3-0. They were outshot 15-5 and a 16% expected goal share per natural stat trick. It's just absolutely terrible. And I don't understand. That's Rob Blake. So if Andreas Englund makes mistakes, that's on Jim Hiller. If Joel Edmondson continues to do what he does and is as bad as he's been, that's Rob Blake. So you can't get mad at the players. You can't get mad at Joel Edmondson. He's doing.
Is that because of how much he's making, Joe?
Which is $3.85 million by 4 years, by the way, to slash a guy and take a penalty, then totally ruin any momentum and give a penalty.
Just had to get one of those in for this episode.
This is why we're so bent out of shape about this stuff. Is I don't know how you can watch these guys play the way that they play in the D zone and say, yeah, this is what we want. This is it. This is it, and it's just really frustrating as a fan and as somebody that wants to watch decent hockey, and just the way these guys, it's tough to watch. It's really tough to watch.
And
the Jones pairing is good. Like it's been good.
Caleb Jones has been.
It was only 2 games, so I don't want to go crazy, but like it clearly looks like he's a better fit.
62.5%, and then goals per 60 is 3.28 to 1.97.
Yeah. We'll just continue to harp. It's a tiny small sample size. We get it, but like the thing that's so maddening is that you paired Joel Edmondson with one of your highest prize prospects that you've had in years, one of your best offensive defenseman prospects that you've probably ever had. That people have said the Kings have never had a player like Brandt Clark, and we get it. So you pair him with a player like Joel Edmondson that has never been known for good defense ever in his NHL career. He's only been known for cross-checking and slashing people, and that's what he's done so far. It's just like, what are we doing? I'm looking at the numbers in Natural Stat Trick. Brandt Clark and Joel Edmondson together, 37.23 expected goal share at 5-on-5. Brandt Clark without Joel Edmondson, 62.36 in 40-plus minutes. It's just... I don't know what to do. We don't know what's going on.
How the organization doesn't see this is alarming.
It's very alarming. It's like hello, is this mic on? Like, what are we doing here? You should be propping Brandt Clark and giving him the opportunity to be Brandt Clark. And like Joe said, like when Joel Edmondson is going out of his way to hit somebody in the neutral zone, and you force Brandt Clark to be the number one primary defender on a play against some of these top-end talent players. And I get it. Drew Doughty's out. He would probably be out there guarding a lot of these minutes, so I get that. But that's not what's the case right now. You have to play what you got right now. And when you have Brandt Clark kind of getting his feet wet still in the NHL, you're really just hemming him down a little. You're bringing him down with the defensive pair that he has. And it's the thing is that's so funny. It's It's not surprising. We're not surprised by what's going on here. It's just that, hello, you have to see what's going on. But you have to see it. You have to look at the stats and notice it yourself.
Joel Edmondson and Andres Englund might be two of the worst defensemen I've ever seen.
And we knew this. None of this is a surprise. We knew this.
Joe, my favorite is when you get upset when you start speaking and you just sit back in your chair and you bring the mic to your face. Cracks me up every single time.
I still can't wrap my head around that contract, and then the fact that Englund is still here. Like this is, and I say Rob Blake because he's the general manager, right? So he's the one that makes the calls. I don't know who's advising him on these decisions, but if it's
can we get a scout that says something like, "Hey, are you watching the same thing I'm watching?"
There's got every single team has departments and analytics departments. So hey, maybe the LA Kings analytics department has stats that say, guys, Joel Edmondson looks freaking good, and Andreas Englund is really like buzzing right now. No, there's not, Johnny. There's not. But it's like, so and oftentimes, guys, like, make no mistake, there is analytics guys and a staff, guys and girls. I don't know, women who could be analytics people in the Kings staff. I don't know them, but there's analytics people with all of these teams. They're not the ones that actually make the decisions. We've all seen Moneyball. We make recommendations. He makes decisions, and so they may make recommendations or give their opinions, but it's Rob Blake that has to go out and make the call. And if Rob Blake and the maybe not often mentioned often enough Mark Bergevin want to play a certain style of game, the Kings got bigger and heavier this season, right? Because remember, Rob Blake put his performative, let's get uncomfortable, and he acted like he was all mad, and you could see what that was going to mean, that he was going to try to go out and get a tougher type of lineup, and he did that. And maybe they are. I don't know. I mean, who did Edmondson slash the other day? Is he hurt? Or did he end up scoring later in the game? I don't know who it was. So maybe he did something there. But this is what they want. If Joel Edmondson takes a slashing penalty and a cross-checking penalty, don't get mad at Joel Edmondson. That's what Rob Blake wants. That's what he wants his players to do. He wants Joel Edmondson to skate out of his way of center ice and go run a guy at the red line, which is totally unnecessary because the puck is in the other zone and it ends up in the back of your net. That's exactly what Rob Blake and Jim Hiller want.
They brought in two guys with over 200 penalty minutes each. So,
and I love what Shankmaster said right here. He said, I thought we brought in some grit. I'm still waiting for it to show up. That's it right there. Great. Because you brought in Joel Edmondson to bring this whole uncomfortable thinking that, okay, Brant Clark's going to be doing what he's doing, and Joel Edmondson's going to be punching people in the face. The Vegas Golden Knights just parked in front of the David Riddick last night and did whatever they wanted, and nobody cleared him out at all. Like, I would have been totally fine if Joel Edmondson got a cross-checking penalty and threw Thomas Turtle in front of the net as opposed to just letting him score. Like, that's a better alternative there, but we haven't seen it, and that's what's so frustrating because we're only getting the bad out of Edmondson. We're not getting any good. So we're waiting for this physicality to show up that hasn't shown up yet. So it's only 7 games. They haven't played a home game yet. Jim Hiller will get the matchups that he wants, so we'll see what happens there. But the small sample size isn't looking good.
And you know what? We're probably in a situation right now where, the Kings got really beat up against Toronto. They got really beat up against Vegas, two teams that I think are definitively better than them. Yet the Kings have handily beaten the likes of Anaheim and Montreal. Okay. I think it's maybe safe to say, all right, they're probably not as bad as the shellackings they've taken against the elite teams. They're probably not as good as the comfortable wins against the really, really bottom dweller teams. They're probably somewhere right in the middle in this kind of meh type of situation, which is really undesirable. But that's probably where they are. So I guess long-winded way of saying, I feel like there's a lot of maybe people getting a little too excited about the Montreal and Anaheim wins, but at the same time, maybe people getting a little too down about the Vegas loss. And conversely, when they go out and they handle San Jose tomorrow, all is not necessarily right in the world. That's to be expected. So you got to let these things play out a bit more, which is obvious. But I do think there's at least some sort of concern that the good teams they're getting stomped on and the bad teams they're beating. Like that's obviously something that needs to change at some point. But we are still in the early days of hockey, especially. It seems that we hinge on every game, and that can dictate. It's almost like the NFL in the first couple weeks of the hockey season, where every win and loss can, because it's all we have right now. We've been jonesing for it for months. So
we're a weekly podcast. Like you're going to get the ebbs and flows in the season, and I think, but they are who we thought they were. This team is who we thought.
Yeah. Well said.
You brought the guys in. They're doing exactly what we thought, which is not positively impacting the team. Jeannot is not the goal scorer he was in his rookie year. Okay, we've seen that. That's why he hasn't worked out on the other teams that he's played on. Joel Edmondson is a guy who doesn't bring anything offensively to the team. Andres Englund is the same player he was last season, which is not very good. You're rostering 8 defensemen. Play the better ones. Like that, I don't understand. Like to me, it's at least with the offensive players that they have are forcing kind of Hiller's hand and possibly sitting Trevor Lewis because they're playing so great. But Brent Clark's playing pretty good. He was on pace for 65. He's not on pace for that anymore. Jordan Spence looked abysmal in the beginning. He kind of settled down a little bit. He's coming along. But how much further would they be if they're not playing with Andres Englund and Joel Edmondson?
Why are they like? And I know I'm not like the biggest Kyle Burrows fan necessarily, but why is Englund playing over Burrows? Did I miss something with Burrows? Russ, is he hurt? Is he sick?
Well, they talked about him being able to play both sides of the ice, but they're not doing it. So
that knows? Like if I am, it's the wrong decision, and I vehemently disagree with it if they were like, well, we just want somebody bigger like Englund instead of Caleb Jones. Again, that's obviously wrong, but at least there's a reason. Like
Burrows and Gavrikov wasn't horrible.
The thing is, they don't have
Burrows. Gavrikov wasn't horrible.
They don't have anyone else to play with Mikey though. That's
Burrows would play with Spence on the middle pair. I mean, the hilarious thing in all of this is they have 2 defensemen that are scratched that could easily slot in, replace 2 defensemen in Englund and Edmondson, and watch the results get better.
They have a defenseman in the AHL that they could bring up and probably better than some of the defensemen that they have right now.
We've known that for 3 years now, 3-4 years now.
The big tuna, man. I miss the big tuna.
Dude, and I still remember those games. I think it was that Gavrikov or Roy Miz. And Moverara came in, and McClellan just hyped up Moverara so much, talking about his analytics and everything. And as soon as everyone was healthy, he was back down to the AHL. Have fun, buddy. Appreciate the time. Here's a 2-year extension at League Min. You're back in the A. But
it makes me think how much is Todd McClellan and now Jim Hiller fighting Rob Blake with personnel decisions every single.
I don't know. I think if that were the case, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say that. Hiller, this is his goal to get a head coaching job, and this was his best opportunity to get a head coaching job. So even if I don't know, I suspect that they had long conversations about what their visions were for the teams during their interview and what they wanted. And if Hiller was like, I don't know, man, I don't think that's the right way to go. I guess I don't know that he would decline the opportunity to get a head coaching job though. So it's hard for me to say. So I don't know. I mean, I can't get a read on Jim Hiller because I really don't know how much of this is him just, this is what Blake wants and I'm going to do it, or how much of it is him. I can't get a read on that.
But don't you think if the team's not performing by the trade deadline, he's also up for getting fired?
100%.
Hiller. So
yeah, I do.
I mean, I've always been the proponent of just asking for forgiveness and doing whatever I feel like. So Jim Hiller, just mix it up, buddy. And if they're winning games, who cares?
The only thing is we can't really truly evaluate this team until Doughty is back. And I think this is what we talked about when Doughty got hurt. They just need to tread water until that happens.
And they are
doing that. If they're beating the bad teams and losing like 6-1 to the good ones, fine. Let's just see what happens until Doughty gets back. You become a 500 team, and then once he's back and they're still playing poorly, when you have Doughty playing 24 plus minutes a night, then we can sit back and say, okay, something else is wrong here.
But Russ, I think that's false. I think you can evaluate this team. You can evaluate the way that the organization views a roster. You can evaluate how they're putting. They're suiting up 8 defensemen. Yeah, the team's going to be worse without Drew Doughty, but you're choosing to put these players on the ice. Now, Joel Edmondson's not coming out because of his contract, but you're choosing not to play Burrows. You're choosing not to play Caleb Jones.
Right.
These are active choices being made. When you have a lot more ability to fit other players in the lineup and kind of move things around and see how it works. Once Doughty comes in, there is no open spot. It should be Doughty, Clark Spence, or vice versa. On the left side, you're going to see Anderson, Gavrikov, Edmondson. It's going to be locked in. Right now, you're seeing choices being made by Hiller and
that's fair,
and the upper brass about how they want to run this team as is right now. Because Doughty's supposed to be back by January, February, but what if he gets a little bit later? What if it's March? And then you only get 3 weeks with that lineup before playoffs, right? Like this team is going to have to carry them into a playoff position or be adjacent to one when Doughty comes back. And right now they're actively making choices that are hindering this team from being a better hockey team.
How much is the we're playing England? Literally, this is how I think they think. We're just going to play England with Spence because we did it last year.
Probably. Yeah.
And we're not going to play Burrows with Spence or Caleb Jones with Spence because, well, Spence is still learning his role and it's a top 4. So we're just going to get him. Well, we'll make sure he's comfortable with Andreas Englund because he did it last year, which is.
I just hope they're not pairing him because they want to protect the player, which that would be just such a ridiculous reason to do that.
What I like about that, what's funny about that is you're probably doing more harm and more risk to the player because you are spending more time in your defensive zone having to be forechecked constantly because you have players that can't get out of their zone. That's kind of the funny part is you're probably way more of a risk for them.
You might be protecting him physically, but his hockey sense is probably getting destroyed in terms of his actual quality of play. It's just
I don't know was this Russ's idea to bring up the defense, Brandon? I don't recall seeing that on the.
It wasn't on the docket, but we kind of strayed a little bit. We've kind of gone over, but I want to talk a little bit really quick about the schedule coming up. Like I said, we're a week-to-week podcast, so next week could be completely different. We have a lot of winnable games and some points. Normally we film or record on Wednesdays. We'll play Vegas next Wednesday, and I don't think we'll do it on the Halloween. So we'll kind of figure out where we're supposed to be. But looking at the schedule, you got the Sharks, one of the worst teams in the league. You got a banged up Utah team who started hot, who lost 2 key contributors, get healthy, Sean Dursey. And then we play the Sharks again. So, I mean, you're looking at quality 6 points right there up for grabs, shove this team back up, get some confidence, get the power play going. And then they play Vegas at home on the back-to-back. So, if they should easily take 6 out of 8 to finish October, in my opinion. And if they could take 8 out of 8 and end the month on a high note against Vegas, this team could be looking quite a bit different here. I think it's going to be dependent on what they look like from a standpoint. But, will we get a Trevor Lewis scratch? Will we get some movement on Andreas Englund? Probably not because, we're scarred right now based off of last season. But maybe. We'll see. I think this team – I would be disappointed if we got anything less than 6 points.
I know Utah's got some injuries here, but I'm not banking 2 there right now. Not right now because they got some high skill. And I'll tell you, we've seen them a few times move the puck around and pick apart the Kings on the power play sometimes, and the way the penalty kill is going for LA. So you're right, Randy. I agree. It's obviously like a winnable game. It's not like you're going into a juggernaut, but it's a team that's playing pretty good, even though they got a couple injuries. So I'm not banking that one, but you got to get those Sharks games. You got to get.
If they win 1 out of 2 between Utah and Vegas, and you get 6 out of 8 possible points, that's a good.
Oh, I agree. Totally agree with your 6. Like if you get if you get 6 points these next 4 games, absolutely. And that's like I said, like it's not whenever we talk about the decor, this pod goes dark. But like the overall in the season, like it's not like it's been a bad start. They're 3-2-2. There's nothing wrong with that start from a results standpoint.
And 5-on-5 looks good. Yeah, there's been a lot of good things are happening with the team. It's just, I feel like the reason this team is losing is so glaringly obvious.
Yeah,
is why we get so frustrated, right? It's like, okay, like you're playing some of these and like I don't know, some of these issues that are coming up are just issues that we knew were going to be issues, and that's why we get all frustrated. But yeah, to end on a positive note, the 5-on-5 looks really good, which is like really solid. Turcotte looks great. LaFerriere is playing well, and this is all with everyone thinking Kevin Fiala is having some horrible start, which Kevin Fiala was always known to be a slow starter in the NHL. Once he gets his feet wet in terms of the Kev that we all know he can be, this team can figure it out. Like, this is all because we're talking about this third line being the number one line. Like, yeah, we're still waiting for Kevin Fiala to figure it out, Kempe maybe to even start rolling, and yet they're still producing. And that's the thing, is like they're still putting up numbers, and yet the sky is falling.
Get a goal scorer, get him with Byfield and more. Despite his slow start production wise, second slot assists, second slot passes, second shot assists, second shot contributions. He's involved. Just need someone to be there to finish for him. So hopefully QB and more can be a thing.
I like it. Well, hopefully good tidings to finish out October. And maybe the Kings won't dress up as something scary like a pathetic hockey team and show us exactly what they're made of. Getting 6 out of 8, possibly 8 out of 8. We need a strong October. Let's do it. It's completely possible. We want to be talking about something positive next week. Thank you all for you guys for visiting us tonight on the live stream. Please hit that like button on the way out. As always, articles are coming out daily at hockeyroyalty.com. Thank you to our sponsors here at DraftKings. So go place your bet, THPN, and get your tickets. Got some good seats available there on Game Time. Get all-in pricing. Johnny Van Potna coming here with the happy Halloween's boys. Go Kings, go. That's what we're talking about.
Go Yankees.
Go Kings, go. Oh.